Hello, everyone. I wanted to go over the answers for the Chapter 10, Section 1, Geography and the Rise of Rome assessment questions. So question number 1 says, where is Italy located? So if we go back to the reading, it says that Italy is located in southern Europe. So Italy is where Rome was built. It is a peninsula in southern Europe. If you look on the map, you can see that Italy looks like a high-heeled boot sticking out into the Mediterranean Sea. So the answer to the question, where is Italy? It is in southern Europe and in the Mediterranean Sea. Question 1b says, explain how did mountains affect life in Italy? Well, if we take a look at the next paragraph, the answer is in the next paragraph. The mountains made it hard for people to cross from one side of the peninsula to the other. In addition to that, some of the mountains are also volcanic, and those volcano eruptions can destroy the towns. So the main problem with the mountains is that it made it hard to get from one side of Italy to the other. So again, here are the Alpine Mountains, this yellow part here, and that made it difficult to get from Rome to the Adriatic Sea or the other side of the peninsula. Also, with having mountains that are also volcanic, it made it so that some cities were destroyed by volcanic eruptions. Question 1C was a prediction question, which means that you had to take a guess based on the reading that you did. So the question is, how do you think Rome's location on the Mediterranean affected its history and began to grow into a world power? So if we take a look at the climate paragraph, here it kind of gives us an insight into that. So the mountains, we know that even though it made it difficult to trade and travel, it also helped with defense. And we know that the climate made it very easy to grow a lot of food. So my prediction to the question of how did Rome's location in the Mediterranean affect its history and why was it able to grow into a world power? Well, it was because it had a good climate where it could grow a lot of food. If there's a lot of food, you can have a lot of people. And the more people you have, the more larger an army you can have and the bigger the economy you can have. And so the easier it is to become a world power. So that's question 1. Question 2a says, identify what brothers supposedly founded the city of Rome. If we keep going, you'll notice that the questions mostly go in order. So now we want to know the name of the brothers that founded Rome. So that's going to be under the section of Rome's legendary origins. And the name of the brothers are Romulus and Remus. So identify just means find it in the book and write down the answer. So the answer is Romulus and Remus for the brothers that founded Rome. 2b, summarize what role did Aeneas play in the founding of Rome. So here we have to go back just a little bit to the part about Aeneas, and summarize means that I have to take the main ideas or the big facts of the section called Aeneas and put them in order. So the first thing that he did is he left where he was in the Trojan War. So he left Troy and came to Italy. And then once he was there, he formed an alliance or a friendship with other Latin kings. Eventually, he fought the other people of Latin and he married one of the king's daughters or a princess. And then he became king of Italy or of Rome, and then left many prominent leaders in Italy. So then once he married the king's daughter and he became the king of Latin, it says their descendants became prominent rulers in Italy. One of those prominent rulers was Romulus and Remus. So that was question 2. Question 3 says, describe what type of government did the Romans create in 509 BCE or BC. So that's going to be the early republic, or the type of government they formed was a republic where people elect leaders to govern themselves. The republic is actually the same type of government that we have in the United States. We have a democratic republic. We elect people to govern for us. So that's a type of government where Romans elect officials, and then those officials have the power to make the laws for the people. So that was 3A. 3B says, contrast, how were patricians and plebeians different? The easiest place to find that information is in this chart here, where it talks about how patricians and plebeians are different. The main difference is that patricians were wealthy and plebeians were not. So the patricians were the upper class or the upper ruling class, and the plebeians were lower on the social pyramid, and they were the common people who did the majority of the jobs. The other big difference is that there were very few patricians, they were the minority, and there were very many plebeians, or they were the majority. So that is a big difference. The last big difference is that the patricians were able to govern. They were the ones who were elected to make the rules, and the plebeians had no rights in government. And then eventually, over time, over several generations or hundreds of years, they were able to gain the power and the right to participate in the government. So that is how the patricians and the plebeians are different. Question number 4, the last question, asks you to categorize or to summarize your notes. So the question says, as you review your notes, separate the legend from the historical events in Rome's founding and growth. Then use a diagram like the one below to list the key legendary events. So the big thing here is that we're just sticking with the legend. We're not talking about what Rome did in its historical events. So it does not include being a republic. It does not include talking about how plebeians eventually got more rights and patricians had to share their power. It is just talking about and summarizing Rome's legendary origins. So it starts with the fact that Aeneas arrived in Italy. And then the next thing that happened is that if we take a look in here, sorry to get back here. So the first box is that Aeneas arrives in Italy. The second box is that Aeneas becomes the ruler of Italy. And then the third box is that Romulus and Remus were saved by a wolf and raised by a shepherd. And then the last box is that Romulus builds the city and names it Rome. And the reason why the last two boxes are about Romulus and Remus is because Romulus and Remus are supposedly the descendants of Aeneas. So again, Aeneas arrives in Italy. Aeneas becomes powerful, takes over the area, and becomes the king of Italy. And then we have Romulus and Remus are born, the descendants of Aeneas. They're raised by a wolf, and then were saved by a wolf and raised by a shepherd. And then eventually Romulus and Remus decide to build the city of Rome. Romulus kills his brother Remus and then calls the city after himself, or Rome, from Romulus. So hopefully that helps you with the answers to these questions. So if you turned in your work and you got something wrong, or I gave you a feedback that said you were missing details, hopefully this fills in the blanks. You can use this video to help you study for the unit test on Chapter 10 that will be next week, Friday. So thanks for watching.